Hey everyone, Saturday night, March 1st, a new month and a win for the Montreal Canadiens. Baby, it's 4 in a row. Let's drop the puck on Montreal Hockey Talk. You know, I've been wanting to do this thing all season long, and it's great that the Canadiens come off the Four Nations Cup with 4 straight wins tonight against the Buffalo Sabres by a score of 4-2 in Buffalo. A road win, always great to have one of those. Cole Caufield setting, his career high in goals, but overall, you got to admit, it's an ugly fucking hockey game. There was nothing great about this game at all. You take a look at, offensively what the Canadiens did. I think the nicest thing that happened in this hockey game was the tip by Alex Newhook to give the Canadiens the lead at the end of the second period. There was a great pass from Laine over to Caufield on the power play to open the scoring. But other than that, think about it for a minute. Was there a lot of really pretty plays? Not really. The Sabres hit 3 goalposts, and despite the fact that Jakub Dobeš did get the win, or was it 4 goalposts? I can't even remember anymore. They don't keep that stat, unfortunately. But, despite the fact that Jakub Dobeš did get the win, he played very well. And getting into Greenway's grill at the end of the game was just icing on the cake. And, for a big guy to take exception to a goaltender, I mean, come on, dude. If you want to be a prick, drop the gloves with Jack, get it over with, move forward. And I believe that's what's going to happen come Monday night when the Canadiens face the Sabres again. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's take a look overall at this hockey game. You take a look at everything that happened. Cole Caufield opening the scoring, like I said, on the power play early on. Then Tuck and Kulich scoring for the Buffalo Sabres. Kulich's goal really got to me because, again, it was another one of those plays where somebody tried to flip the puck out of the zone from deep in the corner. This time it was Jake Evans. They were hard on the forecheck, ended up on Kulich's stick and in the back of the net. And that's not something you want to see. And I want to see the Canadiens get away from it because it's not an effective play. They keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm going to keep beating a dead horse here, but stop with the flip pass because it's only accentuating the other issues that the Canadiens had. Again, something I'll talk about going on forward with the show here. But it was an ugly game. The passing was off. The Canadiens, for the first part of the second period, looked like they were skating in quicksand. And I don't know whether you can credit the Sabres really for a heavy push to start that second or whether the Canadiens just didn't come out ready. But, after that first 10 minutes was gone, it looked pretty much like the Canadiens had taken over the hockey game. They get the tying goal from Josh Anderson, the go-ahead goal late from Alex Newhook, and then in the third period, they get an empty netter from Jake Evans, who, by the way, played his worst game in ages tonight for the Montreal Canadiens. He made that error trying to flip the puck out. He was bumping into players all over the ice, giving away the puck. It was just an absolute shit show for Jake Evans tonight. Something he should take, maybe watch the tape just to learn from his errors, but take it, tear it up, toss it out. Because at the end of the day, Evans is a better player than that, and he deserves a little bit of credit for everything that he's done so far this season. But how do you get away from this ugly game and not take a positive out of it? The positive is the Canadiens played like shit and still managed to win the hockey game, which is great. They also managed to move ahead of the Rangers in the race for the wildcard spot. That is also good, but that's pretty much all there was to it. And let's say, talk about the elephant in the room. Jakub Dobeš played extremely well despite the 3 goalposts, and he did earn the win tonight, making some good saves when he needed to for his hockey club. So overall, it was great. And I think the best player on the ice for Montreal tonight was by far Lane Hutson. There's no two ways about it. Tonight, if Lane Hutson didn't contribute the way he did, especially on the goal scored by Anderson, where he fed the puck over to Dvorak, but more importantly, he did what I've been calling for all season long, is that when he came up the ice, he started on the left side of the ice, came up, and then decided at center to cut through the middle. And when he cuts through the middle, it creates more options offensively. He had Dvorak on the left, he had Gallagher on the right, and he had Anderson as the trailer. All kinds of options for him. Came in, decided to give it to Dvorak, Dvorak back to Anderson, Anderson scores, ties the hockey game up. Those are the type of things that seem trivial to most people, but it's very important in the grand scheme of things because when the Canadiens play outside the dots and on the perimeter, they are not an effective hockey club. When they come through the middle with speed, they very much are. And so that's a lesson to be taken away from this game, along with the giveaways. The giveaway battle was, okay, I can give away the puck more often than you can. That's kind of where the Sabres were tonight, and they did that, giving away the puck 27 times. Canadians gave it away only 20. Only 20. But, okay, I'm joking about that, by the way, because 20 giveaways in a hockey game is way too much. And the Canadians should have had much less against a team that doesn't skate as fast as they do, but they are very big and they do like to throw the body. And they did that tonight. Part of the reason why the Canadians were off their game. So the Canadians need to be better prepared for the game coming up on Monday. But I will take that, put it aside, talk about it a little bit later on in the show. Let's just be happy the fact the Canadians got another 2 points tonight. They played a relatively decent game, but it could have been much better, and it should be on Monday night. But again, one of the things that, like I talked about, is those giveaways. And it's not so much the giveaways along the half wall that bother me all that much, the ones at the blue line that kill them. And during that stretch that I mentioned earlier in the second period, for the better part of 10 minutes, the Sabres dominated. It was because of the fact Canadians couldn't get the puck out of the zone, whether it was that stupid flip pass or whether it was off the boards or even a peewee play where at one point Arbor Jacki tried to clear the puck softly through the middle of the ice. They're giving away the puck way too often. And puck management is a very large part of success in the National Hockey League, or any league for that matter. If you don't manage the puck well, you're not going to win hockey games. And historically, over the past few seasons, that's what's really killed the Canadians. It hasn't been so much the fact that they're young or inexperienced. It's the fact that when they manage the puck, they make mistakes. All that comes down to is poise. You need to have patience. You need to be able to hold on to the puck when you need to. You need to eat it when you have to and take the bumps along the boards. And you also have to be smart about your outlets. And the Canadians did have outlets out there. They had ways to get the puck out of the zone. The problem is they weren't getting the puck out fast enough, and they weren't reading the play properly, and they were just giving it away. One of the guys that does that way more often than I'd like is David Savard. And I've been talking about this for weeks now. Instead of skating the puck up or even trying to dish it to somebody who's streaking through the zone or curling back in the zone, as it were, he tries to flip it out or he puts it off the glass and out, and half the time it's not hard enough. Why? Because the Canadians are worried about icing the puck. Let me tell you something about icing the puck, especially against a team against Buffalo. Tonight, the Canadians were upwards of 59% in the faceoff circle. If you're going to ice the puck, this is the game to do it in because you're going to win more faceoffs than you lose. Okay? If you've got guys like Suzuki and you've got guys like the Dvorak out there who tend to win more faceoffs than they lose, then you know what? You can kind of lay back. And now that Kirby Dach is not in the lineup, somebody else who I'll talk about a little bit later, you've got Owen Beck out there. And Beck has been running hot and cold in the faceoff circle, still getting his feet wet as far as the NHL is concerned, but he's not doing badly, as it were. So if you've got that kind of competency at center ice, then occasionally icing the puck more often than you'd like is okay. Especially in a hockey game where, you know, you're either tied or you're trailing by a goal, and especially against a team that doesn't have a high percentage of firepower, like the Buffalo Sabres. If you take a look at the Sabres, who do they have? They've got Tate Thompson, they've got Quinn, they've got, oh my God, I just lost it. I had it in my head. Damn it. Oh, Alex Tuck. They've got Darlene on the blue line, but after that, it kind of plummets. So in a game like this, being poised with your puck and being more responsible with it, it's going to bear fruit. And the one thing you have to worry about with the Sabres is the forecheck, because any team that's been coached by Lindy Ruff will be very strong on the forecheck, and they apply a lot of puck pressure, always. So when you have the puck, know that you don't have a lot of time to think about it, okay? What you do need to do is move your goddamn feet, David Savard, or you need to move the puck. Now, you know, you take a look at Lane Hudson. He got caught a couple of times tonight on the forecheck by the Buffalo Sabres. And, you know, Hudson is our most elusive defenseman. He's also got the most poise out of any defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens. Guys that struggle, you take a look at Mike Matheson recently, and when they pressure him when he's got the puck, he makes mistakes and they create scoring chances for the opposition. It actually happened tonight more than once with Matheson. And he is by far the guy that gives away the puck in the defensive zone more than any other defenseman on the Canadiens. I don't even have to look at stats about that to know that happens. Why? Because he's thinking more on the offensive side of the puck than he is the defensive side. So that's where part of the problem is. You've got to pull those guys aside and listen. The resources are there. If I can do it with a junior team and take video and put little clips in place for each individual player, then the NHL teams that have more than one video coach can sit down and say, okay, I need to pull this clip and this clip for Mike Matheson. I need to pull this and this for David Savard. I need to pull this for an Arbor Jacki. And speaking of Arbor Jacki, he did give away the puck, but you notice how he's not playing as physical a game because he's more worried about his play, because he got benched, especially in the tail end of the third period just the other day against the Sharks. I mean, it really it changes the way a player plays, and you don't want to see that. You want them to play to their strengths. Jacki's strength is he plays with a physical edge. And tonight, he was a little bit more physical than normal, especially with Greenway. But it's few and far between. When Greenway wasn't on the ice, you saw him playing a little bit more hockey, for lack of a better term. But you don't want these guys who come into the league with a certain skill set to take that skill set and put it aside completely because they're making mistakes. Okay, and I get that they don't want Jack Eider going to the box for stupid reasons or being overly aggressive. Nobody wants that. But at the same time, if you take away his strength and the way he's learned to play the game, you're going to end up with a guy who's lost out there. That's kind of what's happening all over the place. Mike Matheson is a little bit more lost because he's trying to play a more defensive game, but can't. You look at David Savard, he's not moving his feet. He's like, and the Canadiens, for all intents and purposes, looked like they were skating in quicksand in the second period. And then you look at Arbor Jacki, who's had his physical game kind of taken away, and the team suffers for it with his giveaways. There's got to be a bridge there somewhere where you could turn around and tell these guys, you know what, Arbor, play your physical game. If you take a penalty here and there, it's okay, but don't do it too often. You know, if you see that the referees are a little bit more stringent, pull back a little bit. That's an easier way to put it for him instead of telling him, you know, stop playing so physical and worry about playing hockey. Because that's kind of what it looks like. Don't you agree? It's not the same Arbor Jacki. I like the physical Arbor Jacki. I really do. I don't like the fact that he was taking a lot of penalties, but again, that comes down to learning curve. That comes to knowing your audience. When the referees tonight were hot garbage. Well, tonight's the night for you to be a little bit more physical than normal because they weren't calling shit. And when they did call it, Paterka was hitting his own face with his stick. So learn to play within the strengths of each individual player, and the giveaways will stop being so dramatic. The giveaways, you know, if, say, for example, an Arbor Jacki skating the puck up the ice, and you see somebody coming in, he chips it off the boards, take the son of a bitch out. Just knock him on his ass. Puck will get out of the zone eventually. Okay? But don't take away what they do best. None of them. If you do that, you end up in trouble. Now, the other day I was looking at social media, and the vitriol that came out because Kirby Dach was announced to have another knee injury was beyond anything I'd ever seen. And I understand that people are getting frustrated with Dach because he's getting injured. But do you understand the nature of knee injuries and what happens when a player gets them? Because I've had one, and I understand what takes place when your knee hurts and what it takes to rehab the knee injury back. And so here's my thing, because when you take a look at the hit that ultimately took Dach out, it was a nothing hit. And so you ask yourself, how the hell does a soft hit like that end up with season-ending surgery? I'll explain. And I'll give you an example, okay? When I work out, okay, I do squats upwards of about 225 pounds. And about 6 weeks ago, I felt a little twinge in my knee. It was a small little tear in my MCL, but it was a nothing play, right? Squats are squats. I do them all the time. It just so happens the amount of weight that I was squatting was too much for my leg, and the MCL gave out a little bit. Now, granted, in my case, 6 weeks later, I was fine because I stopped working out my legs just so that my knee could heal, and everything was fine. But you look at Kirby Dach, and now Kirby Dach started the season, and everybody was all pissed off at him because of the fact that he wasn't skating as well as he did the year before. his injury, and he wasn't really contributing because he was making mistakes and he was taking penalties because he was a bit slower than normal, and that comes with being unsure of how your knee is. And I will again, as I've done earlier this season, I'll go back to the Andrei Markov injury when Markov had his knee blown out and came back. And when he came back, he wasn't exactly skating the same way. He couldn't pivot to his left. He wasn't as explosive on his skates. He wasn't the same Andrei Markov, and it took him a full calendar year to really get his feet back under him and have the confidence to be able to skate the way he did. Now let's look at Kirby Dach and say the first 20 games of the season, he absolutely played like garbage. Why? Because again, he was basically skating on one leg. Okay, his leg may have been rehabbed and may have been deemed healthy enough to play by the doctors, but that doesn't mean that he was back to playing shape, because when you get a knee injury, the first thing that happens, especially one that is as prolonged as Kirby Dach's, is your muscles atrophy. And atrophy means that they become smaller because of a lack of work. Well, then what happens is you take the time to go and start getting bigger and stronger in the leg while you're playing. And what happens while you're playing is you tend to compensate with the other leg. And there's extra wear and tear on the other leg. And once that leg becomes too weak, the smallest little thing can cause an injury. Case in point, the other night with Kirby Dach going down. So let's stop with Kirby Dach is injury prone. It's humanly, well, let's not say humanly possible. Let's just say it's human nature to overexert yourself or compensate for the lack of strength in a body part by using another one more often, right? Like it's like when you break your right hand, if you're right-handed and you need to be able to write, but you can't hold a pen. What do? You use your left. But when you write, it's chicken scratch. But you're still using it because you have to. Same thing when you're skating. If you don't have symmetry between the strength between both your legs, you tend to have one that compensates more than the other to be able to get up to speed, and the wear and tear is detrimental. That to me is what happened to Kirby Dach, because in no way, shape, or form has he taken any type of hit in recent memory anyway to that right leg to say that his right knee was all messed up and that he shouldn't have, he shouldn't have gotten injured, or he should have gotten injured because of the hit, whatever the case may be. So let's peel back a little bit, because if you take a look at Dach, despite the fact that he started the season poorly, his game did progress and become better as the season went along. He was getting points. He was less often in the penalty box. So there was room for progress. Okay? And the Canadiens have been far and away better when it came to the injury bug this season. Granted, you've got Caden Gooley, who's been out long term. Patrick Laine missed a bunch of time earlier in the season because of what happened in the preseason against the Leafs. And now you've got Kirby Dach. But overall, mad games lost. You cannot compare the last 3 seasons to this year. It's night and day. And hopefully, knock on wood, it remains relatively good when it comes to the injury bug. But let's not besmirch the player's ability to play because of the fact he got injured, because they're human beings. 82-game season, you're beating the absolute crap out of yourself. Just ask Josh Anderson. You don't think that guy wants a day off? You don't think that he enjoyed the Four Nations Cup to be able to heal a little bit? And granted, he came back and took an absolute beating right away, and he looks like he's right back to where he was prior to that. But 2 weeks off, a chance to sit back and heal a little bit and take some time off and enjoy family and friends and just time away from the rink. He maybe had a week off and then they went back to practice in the second week. But at the end of the day, players need rest. And this season, I'm going to go right back to it again. This stupid Four Nations Cup took away the bye weeks for every team in the National Hockey League. And normally you get 2. And during those 2 weeks, the players enjoy not only getting away from the rink for a few days, but a little bit of R&R to be able to nurse some new wounds and heal a little bit. That's not what happened this season. And that's the chance that the NHL takes with their star players and every player anytime they decide to have a prolonged break, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's going to be the World Cup of Hockey coming up in a couple of years, or whatever the case is, or the Four Nations Cup. Those long stretches where they have an event going on, they're detrimental to players that need that time. that play a physical game and need that time to nurse wounds. So, for all the excitement over the Four Nations Cup that everybody had, exciting win by Canada and whatever, think about the guys that are playing for your NHL team that, didn't go to the Four Nations, needed the break, and needed to be able to come back a little bit stronger. The break may very well have been the reason why Dach got injured. Ligaments and tendons tend to tighten up when you're sitting on your ass doing nothing for a week. So don't just blame the player. Blame the system, because the system, for all intents and purposes, needs to be better. Before, the World Cup of Hockey and the Canada Cup used to be in September. An early preseason, call it. Why not do that again? Why does it have to be in February for your sponsors? Let me tell you something, Mr. Bettman. Your sponsors don't give a rat's ass whether you play a tournament like that in September or whether you play it in February. All they worry about is the dineros that it brings in because they're sponsoring your team or your league. So nobody gives a shit. Okay? The guys that want to play in these tournaments, they don't care whether or not you have it in September or February. In fact, they prefer to have it in September. If anything, if you're going to have a tournament like that in the preseason, just do your players a favor. Cancel All-Star Weekend. Pretend that September is your All-Star game. We know that you're not going to cancel the All-Star game because it's your thank you to your sponsors. But why can't the tournament in September be the thank you for your sponsors for that season? Why not, allow the teams their bye weeks and let them rest? I don't know, man. It's all about the Benjamins. It's all about being able to get the salary cap higher so you can have more room to sign players. But at a certain point in time, your players' health and safety is going to be more important, and it's going to be much more impressionable on what the league does. And hopefully, when Mr. Bettman's gone, somebody's going to come in and say, you know what, I need to be a better commissioner, not just for the league and the business. I need to be a better commissioner for my players because, after all, without the players, there is no league. Now, finally, let's talk about Monday. And Monday is not on Prime. Instead, it's the Leafs playing on Amazon Prime. But who cares? We'll be able to watch it either on Sportsnet or TSN, as it were, I should say, or on RDS, which is my channel of preference, even though it's French. But, it's another one of those games that's going to come up, and the Canadiens are going to be, just like they were tonight, overmatched when it comes to the physicality. Now, somebody on Twitter, I believe it was JD the Green, said Monday would be a good game to bring in Michael Pezzetta. I'm sorry, JD, for as much as I love what you write for the Sick Podcast Network, I got to tell you, bringing in a player just because you're playing a certain team is not right. It's not fair to the player because he hasn't played in a certain period of time. And it's also not fair to the players on your team that took the beating the game before. The Canadiens came away with the 4-2 win tonight. And granted, it could have been much better than it was. But, you've got a day to be able to sit down with your guys, crack a couple of videos into the machine, have the players take a look and show them what they did wrong during the game. Those corrections are easily made. Okay, guys can identify with the errors that they make on the ice. It's what they do every game. You can also take a look at the game plan as a coaching staff and say to yourself, you know what? We worried too much about being able to get the puck out, but we didn't focus on the physicality that Buffalo brings to the table. They are not like, let's say, the Ottawa Senators, who can be physical and play with speed. They just come in there and they try to beat the living crap out of you to be able to get 2 points. So the Canadiens can adapt their style to be able to use the middle of the ice more, where the physicality of the Sabres does not come into play. The more you're in the middle of the ice, the more players have to hit you with open ice hits. And those are more difficult than any type of hit along the boards. We all know that. So long as you keep the puck inside the dots and not outside, you take away Buffalo's strength. And then when you do play more in the middle, you tend to open up the wings to be able to get the puck out a little bit more freely to help your defense have better options to get the puck out, and you can use the outside to come into the offensive zone and create offense. It's a win-win. But against a team like Buffalo that is overly physical, the middle of the ice is your key component. You've got everything else. Face-off wins. If I take a look at it, your power play was 1 for 4. Granted, that could have been better. You blocked enough shots to help your goaltender. Granted, your giveaways were high, but again, if you're opening up space to be able to get the puck out of the ice effectively by using the middle of the ice, a la Lane Hudson, then what happens? Well, there's less chance your players are going to get hit and more of a chance you're going to be able to create different options on offense or defense for that matter to get the puck out. So that's what the Canadiens have to take a look at. That's where they have to get their mindset has to be in order to be able to beat the Sabres on Monday. And that's not to say that the Sabres aren't going to do the exact same thing. They're not. They're going to go. They're going to take a look at their video. They're going to look at what they did well against Montreal, and they're going to try to do more of it. And that means for the Sabres that they're going to come in and they're going to try to be more physical in Montreal, because after all, the more physical they got, the more angry the Canadiens got. And the angrier the Canadiens got, the more prone they are to take penalties. It's natural to do that. So play in the middle of the ice if you're Montreal, take away the half wall and the perspective of getting hit from the Sabres, and their size then gets mitigated. You're forcing them to skate instead of forcing them to throw a hit to try to separate man from puck. It changes the whole dynamic of the game. And after that, okay, you've got multiple nets. I don't know whether or not the Sabres are going to start looking in again on on Monday. That remains to be seen. But by and large, I think it's going to be multiple in goal on Monday versus the Sabres. So we'll take a look at that game as it comes on Monday. We'll talk on Monday night. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. In Montreal, it's freezing right now. Stay warm and go Habs go. Bye for now.